Newlyweds. Our honeymoon was supposed to be in Maui. My husband insisted on bringing his secretary along. I didn't make a scene. I accepted it calmly. After landing, he discovered I hadn't boarded the plane. When he turned on his phone, he went into shock. Life has 1,000 flavors. It's between the sorrow and the joy that true affection is revealed. Days have their dawns and dusks, and it's in the hellos and goodbyes that you truly get to know a person's heart. In the departures hall of JFK Airport, Terminal 4 Inches, New York, the PA system echoed with final boarding calls. I was linking arms with Alexander, standing in front of the Delta Airlines check-in counter. The moment he touched his passport, he let out a soft, forced cough. "Honey, I need to tell you something." He turned the sleeve of his linen suit, brushing my arm. His tone was artificially casual. "Chloe has an urgent document to review with me. She's coming with us on this honeymoon. That way, we can get ahead on some work during the flight." When I looked up, I saw Chloe Sullivan making her way through the crowd. She was wearing an elegant, custom-tailored white dress and pulling a carry-on suitcase that was the exact same model as mine. On her face was a perfectly rehearsed, apologetic smile. "Sophia, I am so sorry for interrupting your honeymoon. It's just that this project report is something only Alex and I can finalize. If we postpone it, it could affect the company's funding next month." As she spoke, she lowered her head slightly, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught a fleeting glimmer of triumph. The other passengers in line were shooting us curious glances. Alexander's hand gently squeezed my waist. As if taking his silent warning not to make a scene, I forced a compliant smile. "No problem. Work comes first. With one more person, the trip will be even more fun." Hearing this, Alexander let out a very obvious sigh of relief. Chloe's eyes lit up, and she rushed to hand her passport to the agent at the counter. While the attendant verified the information, I pretended to organize my purse, my fingers moving rapidly across my phone screen. To make check-in easier, our ticket information was all linked to my account. In that split second, I opened the Delta app, found my reservation, selected my ticket, and without hesitation, tapped Cancel Flight. When the system asked for confirmation, I glanced sideways at Alexander, who was quietly discussing work with Chloe, and firmly pressed the Confirm button. As soon as the successful cancellation notification popped up, I opened my contacts and blocked both Alexander's and Chloe's numbers. Once done, I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The smile on my face remained completely serene. The agent handed back the 3 passports and boarding passes. Alexander took them, handed one to Chloe, and placed mine in my hand. "Here, let's head to TSA security quickly, or we'll miss the flight." I took the passport and the boarding pass, feeling the texture of the paper now ironically invalid. "Okay," I nodded, following him toward the security checkpoint. Along the way, Alexander didn't stop talking about work with Chloe. Every now and then, he would turn to say a few superficial words to me, sounding like he was just checking a mandatory box. I replied neutrally, knowing perfectly well that this carefully orchestrated outcome had only just begun. At the TSA pre-check line, Alexander and Chloe went through first. I purposely lagged behind, and the moment they cleared the metal detectors, I turned around and walked straight to a nearby customer service desk. "Good morning. I'd like to request a refund for this ticket, please." I handed over my passport and the voided boarding pass. The agent checked the information and quickly processed the request. "The refund will be credited back to your account within 3 to 5 business days." Walking away from the counter, I glanced back toward the security checkpoint. Alexander and Chloe were already gone. I pulled out my phone, double-checked that they were still blocked, opened the Uber app, and typed in my Manhattan home address right there in Terminal 4. The humid, warm Pacific breeze hit his face. Alexander stepped off the plane holding his briefcase and instinctively looked back. Behind him, only Chloe followed closely. There was no sign of Sophia. He frowned and pulled out his phone to call her, but the screen showed a call failed notification. "That's weird. Why is there no signal?" he muttered, trying again. The result was the same. Chloe stepped closer, her face lit up by a poorly concealed joy. "Alex, maybe Sophia's phone died, or she doesn't have service?" She paused, then added, "Maybe she's waiting for us in the terminal. Let's go get the bags first." Alexander nodded and followed the flow of people to the baggage claim. He watched the suitcases go round and round the carousel, But Sophia's pink luggage never appeared. A knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He grabbed his phone and opened iMessage to text her, only to discover that his messages were turning green instead of blue. Delivered never appeared. Chloe leaned over, taking in the scene, and couldn't hold back a smirk. Alex, what if Sophia didn't come on purpose? Alexander's face hardened. Without a word, he grabbed Chloe and stormed out of Kahului Airport, catching a cab straight to the luxury resort they had booked in Wailea. At check-in, the front desk agent verified the information and asked politely, "Did Mrs. Sophia not join you? We only have 2 guests registered for this reservation. Will she be arriving later?" Alexander swallowed his anger. "Just check us in first." Keycard in hand, he practically kicked the door to the suite open. The massive ocean view room was empty, no trace of Sophia. He picked up his phone and tried to reach me through every possible channel. Calls, texts, emails, all in vain. Chloe sat on the sofa, pretending to comfort him, while secretly admiring the room's lavish decor with eyes full of satisfaction. As Alexander paced back and forth anxiously, his phone buzzed. He had received a text from an unknown number. He opened it frantically. It was signed with my name. "Alexander, happy honeymoon. I wanted to enjoy this moment with you, but I can't stand the idea of a party of 3. I won't bother you and Chloe. Oh, I forgot to mention, the money in our joint account, the Hamptons house you bought before we got married but that we paid for together, and part of your company shares. I've already had my lawyer file for a temporary restraining order on all assets. By now, everything should be frozen. Have fun in Maui. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers. Wishing you both an excellent collaboration." The message was short, but it hit Alexander like a sledgehammer. He gripped the phone tightly, his knuckles turning white, his face as pale as wax. "Impossible. How dare she?" he screamed, hurling the phone at the couch. The device bounced off and hit the floor, cracking the screen. Chloe gasped, picking up the phone. As she read the message, her triumphant air vanished instantly. "Alex, what? What are we going to do now? The accounts are frozen. How are we going to pay for things here?" Alexander ignored her, walking over to the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the blue ocean, his chest heaving violently. He never imagined that Sophia, always so sweet and accommodating, would pull something like this. He tried calling the corporate finance department to have funds wired to him, only to discover that both his personal and business accounts were inaccessible. He tried to contact his lawyer, but the line went straight to voicemail. It didn't take much to realize that Sophia had already taken care of that, too. Beside him, Chloe looked helpless. Her initial confidence had completely evaporated. She had thought that by coming to Maui with Alexander, she could enjoy a luxury vacation while solidifying her position as the new woman in his life. But now, with their assets frozen and no way to contact anyone back on the East Coast, they were cornered. Alexander took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He turned to Chloe. "Call your family or your friends right now. Ask them to wire you some emergency money. We need cash for immediate expenses. And find a way to contact the VP of the company. Tell him to help me sort out this account issue." Chloe nodded frantically and started making calls. But for some reason, no one on the other end was picking up. The black car pulled up smoothly in front of the Vance law firm building. I stepped out in my heels and walked into the sleek skyscraper right in the heart of Park Avenue, Midtown Manhattan. The elevator shot straight up to the 18th floor. The moment I stepped out, Mr. Vance's paralegal came to greet me. "Mrs. Mendoza, Mr. Vance is expecting you in the conference room." I followed her into an elegant, soundproofed room. Mr. Vance was sitting by the window, reviewing some documents. Seeing me enter, he stood up. "Sophia, please, have a seat." He offered me a glass of water. "Did you bring the documents we discussed on the phone?" "Everything is here, Mr. Vance." I nodded, pulling a thick leather folder from my designer tote and placing it on the table. I opened it. The first page contained intimate photos of Alexander and Chloe hugging in the company's parking garage. Surveillance stills of them entering a luxury condo in Tribeca together. Hotel check-in records for the same room during supposed overseas business trips. All of this had been gathered over the last 6 months and clearly proved Alexander's double life. Mr. Vance picked up the photos and examined them carefully, asking his assistant to scan them for the file. I kept flipping through and pulled out a stack of bank statements and wire transfer receipts. These are Alexander's financial movements over the last year. Under the guise of investments and B2B transactions, he transferred a total of $300,000 to Chloe's personal account. There were also large transfers to a distant cousin of his, a clear attempt to hide assets from our marital estate. I pointed to a specific wire transfer. This one is for $70,000. The money was wired on our wedding anniversary. He told me it was a commission for a vendor, but in reality, Chloe used that money to buy herself a new Range Rover that very same day. Mr. Vance listened, taking notes and occasionally asking crucial questions. Do these transfer records have supporting evidence, like messages or invoices? Yes. I pulled another stack of documents from the folder. Here is the bill of sale for Chloe's new vehicle. The routing number for the payment matches the account that received the wire. I also have the iMessage transcripts between them, where they explicitly discuss using this money. A portion went toward buying designer items she asked for, and the rest was for a down payment on an apartment for the two of them. I paused. These conversations are complete, unaltered, and have already been notarized. Mr. Vance nodded approvingly, organizing the paperwork. This evidence is more than sufficient. It proves infidelity, but more importantly, and this is where criminal liability comes in, it proves breach of fiduciary duty, embezzlement, and fraud against the marital estate by Alexander. We will formally file the divorce petition in the New York Supreme Court today and simultaneously move to make the temporary restraining order on the assets permanent, ensuring he can't move another dime. He opened his laptop and showed me the draft of the divorce petition he had prepared. Please review the demands section to see if anything needs modifying. I leaned in to read. The petition clearly requested the dissolution of the marriage, and in the division of assets, it demanded that Alexander be penalized for the misappropriated capital, seeking compensatory damages. And, of course, it included a civil claim against Chloe for the return of the illicitly received funds. No changes needed. This is exactly what I want. I signed it and handed it back. Regarding the temporary restraining order, Vance continued, we already petitioned the judge for a pre-judgment attachment and the freezing of all bank accounts, real estate properties, vehicles, and his company shares. The duty judge issued the order, and the banks executed the freeze this morning. He handed me a copy of the court order. You can rest easy. Right now, his assets are completely locked. He can't make transfers or use his credit cards. I took the order, running my thumb over the court seal, feeling absolutely no emotion. Just then, the lawyer's cell phone rang. He answered, spoke for a few moments, and hung up. I just received word that Alexander and Chloe are already in Maui. They realized you weren't there and have been desperately trying to contact you, but I see you've blocked them. Furthermore, they tried to use the Amex Platinum card to pay for incidentals at the resort, and it was declined. They must be in full-blown panic mode right now. I took a sip of water, a faint smile forming on my lips. Let them panic for a while. After all, the show has just begun. From here on out, Vance smiled. We will proceed simultaneously with the divorce and the criminal complaint for embezzlement. If you find any new evidence, let me know immediately. As for Alexander's company, we will also send forensic auditors to ensure no marital assets are being hidden in the corporate books. I stood up and shook his hand. Thank you so much, Mr. Vance. I leave it all in your hands. Stepping out of the law firm, the Manhattan sun was shining brightly. I looked up at the blue sky, took out my phone, and made a call. Hello? I need you to do a deep dive into the recent financial status of Alexander's company, specifically the projects he oversaw directly. If there are any anomalies, let me know right away. Innovatech, Alexander's tech firm, occupied the top floors of a prestigious office building in Midtown. When I arrived at the reception desk, the secretary looked visibly shocked. Mrs. Sophia? What are you doing here? Her face showed hesitation, clearly not expecting me. I'm here for an emergency meeting of the board of directors. I handed her a formal notice I had prepared in advance, signed by me as a 30% majority shareholder, strictly in accordance with the company's bylaws. The receptionist didn't dare argue and immediately called the executive suite. In less than 2 minutes, the board secretary hurried out of the elevator, looking tense. Mrs. Sophia, you called this emergency meeting without notifying Mr. Alexander, and he happens to be unreachable today. I smiled discreetly. Let's proceed to the boardroom. By the time I walked in, The other 4 board members were already seated at the large mahogany table, wearing expressions of sheer perplexity. They had received the summons that morning and had no idea what this was about. I sat in the chair reserved for the primary shareholders, right next to the empty CEO seat, and connected my laptop to the room's projector. Esteemed board members, I have called this emergency meeting today to inform you. I looked around the room, locking eyes with the CFO, Mr. White. The first matter concerns the financial situation of the company over the last fiscal year. I have here a forensic audit report for your review. I clicked the mouse, and a series of data points and graphs appeared on the screen. This is $1,500,000 that Alexander withdrew from the corporate account under the guise of R&D investments. In reality, this money never went to any project. It was siphoned into an offshore shell company that he controls. I pointed to a specific ledger entry on the screen. And here, he used his position to transfer essential technological patents from our firm to an associated subsidiary at a ridiculously low price, securing personal profits and causing a direct accounting hole of at least $800,000 for Innovatic. Whispers erupted in the room. Several board members began speaking to each other in alarm. Mr. White adjusted his glasses. Sophia, has this data been verified? None of these movements appeared in the annual financial statements we approved. Of course they are verified. I pulled the original audit from my briefcase and distributed copies. This report was issued by one of the Big Four accounting firms. Every cash flow is traced and documented. To cover his tracks, Alexander falsified the balance sheets and bribed a manager in your department, Mr. White. I clicked the mouse again, and a video of the employee's confession played on the screen. This is the evidence he voluntarily provided under oath, confessing that Alexander ordered him to cook the books and divert the funds. When the video ended, the silence in the room was deafening. I continued. Second matter. Alexander has maintained an inappropriate relationship with his secretary, Chloe Sullivan. Using company resources, he has used corporate funds to benefit her, including unjustified salary increases, fraudulent bonuses, and the payment of her personal expenses. I displayed screenshots of corporate credit card statements and receipts for luxury purchases in Chloe's name, all paid for by the company. This evidence proves that Alexander has severely violated his fiduciary duties, the company bylaws, and has jeopardized our financial interests and reputation. A veteran board member slammed his hand on the table. Sophia, given all of this, what do you propose we do? I propose the immediate termination of Alexander from the position of CEO and the creation of an internal investigation committee to audit all of his activities in order to file the corresponding criminal charges and recover the funds. My voice was unwavering. At the same time, I have already contacted an executive headhunter to select a professional manager to take over as interim CEO and prevent our stock from tanking. The board members exchanged glances. Mr. White was the first to speak. The evidence Sophia has presented is conclusive. Alexander's conduct constitutes severe corporate fraud. I vote in favor of his termination. Within minutes, the termination was unanimously approved. I pulled out the pre-drafted meeting minutes and had them all sign. Thank you for your support. I packed up my documents. I already have a preliminary list for the audit committee. I'll email it to you shortly. I also ask for absolute confidentiality for the time being, to avoid causing panic in the markets. As I walked out of the boardroom, the employees stared at me with curiosity. I went straight into Alexander's office and started throwing his personal items into a cardboard box. From that day on, this place no longer belonged to him. I sat in his leather chair, looked out at the Manhattan traffic through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and picked up the phone to call the headhunting agency to schedule interviews. After leaving Innovatech, sitting in my car, I called Ray, the private investigator. Ray, is Chloe's address confirmed? The legal notice is ready for delivery. Everything is confirmed, Mrs. Sophia. Upper East Side, 72nd Street, 4th floor, Apt 4B. I'm right in front of the lobby. I can head up whenever you give the word. Thank you, I reminded him. When you deliver the notice, make sure you record everything on a hidden body cam so we have proof she received it in hand. If she refuses, follow the legal procedure to declare her officially served. I hung up and launched the live feed on my phone. The screen showed the perspective from Ray's hidden camera. He was wearing casual clothes and holding a sealed envelope as he walked into the luxury marble lobby. The elevator went up to the 4th floor. Ray rang the doorbell to 4B. Half a minute later, the door cracked open. Chloe's face appeared. Her hair was messy, and she had a face mask half peeled off, clearly not expecting visitors. Seeing Ray, she frowned. "Who are you? What do you want? Are you Miss Chloe Sullivan?" Ray quickly flashed his credentials. "I am a private investigator hired by the Vance law firm, representing Mrs. Sophia Mendoza. I have a legal subpoena to deliver to you." Chloe's face instantly tightened, and she tried to slam the door shut. "I don't know any Sophia, and I'm not receiving anything." "Go away." "Miss Sullivan," Ray said firmly, wedging his boot into the doorframe. "This notice pertains to your involvement in the embezzlement of corporate assets and marital funds. Please cooperate and sign the receipt. If you refuse, it will be considered legally served anyway, and the criminal consequences will fall solely on you." Chloe's body went rigid. The word embezzlement had hit her right in the chest. She hesitated for a few seconds before reluctantly pulling the door open, crossing her arms. "What notice? What nonsense are you talking about? Don't bring your drama here, or I'm calling the cops." Ray ignored her, pulled out the document, and handed it over. "You can read the contents. Then, sign here." Chloe snatched the paper and began reading rapidly. The more she read, the paler she got. Her fingers started trembling. The document detailed all of her offenses: use of corporate cards for personal purchases totaling $42,000, receipt of $300,000 from the marital estate transferred by Alexander, and complicity in the diversion of corporate funds by receiving a $50,000 kickback, identifying her as a co-conspirator in a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. At the end, the demand letter clearly stated that Chloe must return all funds totaling $392,000 within 7 days, under the threat of federal wire fraud and grand larceny charges. "This is all a lie!" She looked up sharply, her voice shaking. "Alex gave me that money voluntarily. It's my salary and gifts. It's not illegal. Whether it's illegal or not will be decided by a federal judge." Ray didn't flinch. "We have the original receipts, the wire transfers, and your iMessage logs acknowledging the origin of the money. If you disagree, we'll see you in federal court. But first, return the funds." Chloe lost her nerve. She threw the paper on the floor and screamed, "I'm not signing anything, and I'm not giving back a single cent. This is just a trap from that bitter Sophia because she's jealous of me." "Ma'am, calm down." Ray bent down to pick up the paper. "Your actions constitute receiving stolen property and money laundering. If you don't cooperate, the criminal complaint will be filed today. You could face not just the freezing of your bank accounts but prison time." Chloe wavered, her eyes filled with fear and desperation. She knew the evidence would ruin her. She looked at the document in Ray's hands. After a long silence, she gritted her teeth, grabbed the pen, and signed the acknowledgement receipt with so much force she almost tore the paper. Ray secured the receipt, confirmed everything was recorded, and left. As he walked out onto the street, he sent me a text. "Mission accomplished. Signed. All on video." At 10 a.m. at the flagship Chase branch, everything was business as usual. I, dressed in an impeccable white tailored suit, walked into the private client area. The moment I gave my name, the branch manager, Eleanor Thompson, came to greet me with a professional smile. "Sophia, how are you? I have all the paperwork you requested ready." She guided me into a glass-walled office and offered me a sparkling water. "On the phone, you mentioned you wanted to execute the division of marital funds. Did you bring the court orders?" I nodded and began pulling documents from my bag. The family court order decreeing the freeze, the divorce filing acknowledgement, and the asset protection mandate signed by the judge. "Eleanor, here are the originals. You can verify them." Eleanor put on her reading glasses and examined the pages bearing the seal of the Supreme Court of New York, cross-referencing the information with her computer database. I leaned back in the leather chair, looking at the wall-mounted screen displaying the S&P 500 ticker. That money included my savings from before we married, profits from my own investments, and part of my parents' inheritance. I was not going to let Alexander blow it all. "Everything is in order, Sophia." Eleanor placed the papers on the desk. "However, I must inform you of the current situation. All accounts under Mr. Wanlai. Eleanor placed the papers on the desk. Alexander's name, including his direct deposit account, investment portfolios, certificates of deposit, and the supplementary credit card linked to the joint account, were frozen yesterday by court order. Right now, they only accept deposits. Not a single cent can be withdrawn. She paused and added in a confidential tone. And our system shows that last night they attempted to use the Visa Gold to pay at a hotel in Maui, but the transaction was declined due to the freeze. Furthermore, through the mobile app, he tried to apply for 3 pre-approved personal loans, all of which were automatically denied. I took a sip of water. I know. We requested the freeze. Please proceed to transfer my 50% of the funds into my exclusive personal account, exactly as authorized by the judge's order. Right away. There is $862,000 in liquid cash in the joint account. Your share is $431,000. I am processing the transfer now. She clicked her mouse, and instantly, my phone buzzed with an alert from the Chase app notifying me of the deposit. Additionally, you have a guaranteed mutual fund of $1,500,000 that matures in 2 months. If we liquidate it now, there will be an early withdrawal penalty. Are you sure you want to do this today? Completely sure. I don't care about the lost interest. What's crucial is separating the assets immediately. While Eleanor was processing the liquidation of the fund, the office door was pushed open abruptly. A security guard stepped in and whispered something in her ear. Eleanor's expression changed, and she apologized. "Excuse me, Sophia. Give me just a couple of minutes. There is a disturbance outside." She rushed out. Intrigued, I peeked through the glass walls into the main lobby and saw what was happening by the teller stations. A man was yelling indignantly. I instantly recognized Derek, Alexander's cousin, the front man who had helped him hide the money. "Why the hell did you freeze my account? I have nothing to do with Alex's shady business. Unfreeze my money right now, or I'll sue this bank." Derek screamed, his hair a mess, wearing a wrinkled jacket. Eleanor tried to calm him down. "Sir, your account has been frozen by order of the FBI and the federal court because there is evidence that it received massive wire transfers to conceal marital assets. Here is a copy of the subpoena." "I don't give a damn about a subpoena." Derek slapped the paper out of her hand, sending it fluttering to the floor. "That money was a loan for my business. I'm not moving from here until you give me my money." He plunked himself down on the floor of the bank lobby, throwing a pathetic tantrum. I frowned, walked back to my seat, and sent a text to Mr. Vance. 2 minutes later, he replied, "Derek's account is key to the money laundering scheme. There is already an active criminal investigation against him. Tell the bank to call the police." Eleanor returned to the office, sighing. "I am so sorry for the spectacle, Sophia. Don't worry about it. Do what you have to do with him. Let's finish our business." Eleanor went back to her computer. The mutual fund liquidation has been approved by corporate. After the penalty, the balance is $1,486,000. Your share is $743,000. It is now in your account. Added to the liquid cash and the prorated commercial rent from the seized property, that makes a total of $1,220,000. Not a penny less. I signed the receipts with a firm hand. By the way, Sophia, I was just informed that Alexander attempted to log into his online banking a little while ago to execute an international wire transfer to a bank in the Cayman Islands, but the anti-money laundering system flagged and blocked the IP address automatically. He can see the balance, but he can't move a single dollar. I smiled. Now all he could do was stare at the screen and despair. I gathered my receipts and walked out of the bank into the Manhattan sunshine. My account showed the exact figure. $1,220,000. Another message from Vance came through. The NYPD just escorted Derek out of the branch in handcuffs for disorderly conduct and on an FBI warrant. At that exact hour, in Maui, the sun was streaming through the suite's windows, illuminating the Pacific. But Alexander's face was darker than a thunderstorm. He had emptied his suitcase onto the rug. A Patek Philippe watch, a gold Cartier chain, and a limited edition Rolex. They were the trophies of his ego, now his only lifeline. All of this has to be worth at least $200,000 on the resale market. "It's enough to pay for the hotel and our flights back to New York," he said, rubbing the face of the Patek with a glimmer of hope. Chloe, sitting on the sofa biting her nails, looked at him anxiously. "But who are you going to sell it to here?" A tourist pawn shop? Alexander grabbed his phone, its cracked screen barely functioning, to search for luxury jewelers on the island. Suddenly, an automated email from the resort popped up. Dear Mr. Rivers, we regret to inform you that your credit card on file has been frozen by your bank. As your incidentals are currently unpaid and your new card was declined, you are in violation of our booking policies. Please settle the $18,000 penalty immediately, or we will contact the Maui Police Department. You are not authorized to remove any items of value without express consent. Furthermore, due to the violation of our booking policies by altering the registered guests, a penalty of $18,000 has been applied to your folio. We kindly request that you settle this amount at the front desk within the next 24 hours, or we will be forced to contact the Maui Police Department. Alexander's hand shook, and he dropped the phone. This is impossible. How the hell did she plan all this? He screamed, picking up the room phone to call the front desk. What right do you have to hold my things? It's my watch. Sir, the manager replied with an icy tone. It is a legal hold tied to the credit card used for the original reservation. The cardholder, Mrs. Mendoza, left a security deposit warning us of the flight risk regarding marital assets. Alexander slammed the phone down, shaking with rage. He turned to Chloe. This is all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on coming to Maui to parade yourself around, none of this would have happened. My fault? Chloe burst into tears. You were the one who bought my ticket. Now that you've ruined us, you're blaming me? The suite filled with screams and reproaches. After the fight, Alexander remembered something. In the hotel safe, he had left a raw Colombian emerald he bought last year on a trip to Bogota. It was worth a fortune. He ran down to the lobby to demand they open the master safe. The general manager came out to meet him, flanked by 2 security guards. Mr. Rivers. That jewel is also listed on the inventory of frozen marital assets by court order. You cannot touch it. And since you are here, the deadline to pay your hotel bill has expired. No, I don't have the funds right now. Give me a few days. I'm sorry, the security guard said. We have orders from management. We are going to have to call the police for suspected fraud and defrauding an innkeeper. Alexander backed away in terror, while Chloe, who had followed him down, shrank into a corner, crying in absolute panic. The car exited the highway and took a winding country road. Half an hour later, in a town in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, the familiar outline of the farmhouse appeared. Stone walls, a slate roof, and the old oak tree in the front yard. I parked the car, grabbed the gifts I had brought, and walked through the wooden gate. Who is it? I heard my mother-in-law's voice from the kitchen, accompanied by the sound of a knife chopping vegetables for a beef stew. I reached the door. She was wearing a plaid apron. Mary, it's me. She turned, and seeing me, the knife hovered in the air. Sophia? What are you doing here, honey? And, Alex, weren't you guys in Maui on your honeymoon? I came to tell you something. I walked in, gently took the knife from her, and helped her scrape the carrots into the pot. Alex is still in Maui. I didn't go with him. Just then, my father-in-law, Joe, walked out of the living room with the Wall Street Journal in his hand, looking confused. What's going on? Why didn't you go together? Did that idiot son of mine do something to you? I shook my head. Joe, Mary, sit down, please. I have to show you something. We sat around the rustic kitchen table. I pulled out my folder and laid the photos of Alexander and Chloe right in front of them. Alexander has been cheating on me with his secretary, Chloe. But that's not the worst part. He's been draining our accounts and bankrupting his company to buy her luxuries and an apartment. Here are the audits and the bank statements. Joe put on his reading glasses and started to read. His face, weathered by the country sun, turned red with indignation. He slammed his hand on the oak table so hard the water glasses rattled. That shameless bastard! How did I raise such a miserable son? Stealing from his own company. That means prison. Mary covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. That wretched boy. What a disgrace to this family. Sophia, my sweet girl, I am so sorry. I've already filed for divorce and pressed criminal charges. His accounts are frozen. I looked at them with absolute sincerity. I came because you have always treated me like a daughter. I will understand if you decide to take his side. He is your blood. Mary grabbed my hands, crying. Absolutely not. If he did the crime, he does the time. Alexander is a scoundrel. Joe, we are not lifting a finger to help him. Of course not, my father-in-law grunted. Honey, we support you 100%. In fact, Alexander was always a schemer. He has some old accounts at the local credit union, and I know he hides documents in the safe in his old bedroom. We're going to dig it all up for your lawyer. They marched upstairs and came back with an old bank passbook and some mutual fund contracts that Alexander had kept hidden. Mary also brought down a gold bracelet. That sneaky little Chloe left this bracelet here the last time they visited. It gave me a bad feeling even then. Take it as proof that he was spending that money on her. I had lunch with them, a hearty bowl of beef stew. They told me stories of Alexander as a child, their voices full of pain and disappointment. When we said goodbye, Mary hugged me tight. Take care of yourself, Sophia. This will always be your home. Thank you. I will always love you like my own parents. In the International Arrivals Hall of JFK Terminal 4, I was sitting in the Delta Sky Club lounge by the massive window, holding a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon. My phone screen lit up. A message from my contact at the airport. The flight from Maui just landed. I stood up and moved closer to the glass overlooking the arrivals exit, where I had a perfect view of the sliding doors. Shortly after, I saw Alexander and Chloe walk out. They looked pathetic. He was wearing the same linen suit, now wrinkled and stained, with horrible dark circles under his eyes and a heavy shadow of a beard. Her hair was greasy, she wore no makeup, and she was dragging her feet, carrying only a small purse. Her designer suitcase was gone, likely seized by the hotel. They barely made it 10 steps into the terminal before they were intercepted by 4 men in dark suits who flashed their badges. Mr. Alexander Rivers, we are special agents with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. You are under arrest for alleged wire fraud, corporate embezzlement, and document forgery. Please come with us. All the color drained from Alexander's face. He tried to pull away. You're making a mistake. I am a respected CEO. This is a misunderstanding with my ex-wife. He turned to Chloe for support, but 2 female agents were already slapping cuffs on her wrists. Miss Chloe Sullivan, you are under arrest as a co-conspirator and for receiving stolen funds. Chloe's legs gave out, and she began sobbing loudly in the middle of the terminal. I didn't do anything. He told me to. I'm just an employee. Travelers stopped to record the scene with their phones. Alexander felt the humiliation burning his skin. Let's go, the lead agent ordered, securing the handcuffs on Alexander. At that moment, turning his head, Alexander locked eyes with me. I was standing there, leaning against the glass railing on the upper level. Seeing me, he started screaming like a madman. Sophia! Sophia, for God's sake, help me! I know I messed up. Let's not get divorced. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. I'll give you everything. Everything. I remained motionless, looking down at him with the coldness of a glacier as I took a slow sip of my wine. Sophia, forgive me, we can start over. He kept screaming as the agents shoved him toward the transport van waiting outside the terminal. Chloe followed, crying her eyes out, dragged along by the officers. When they disappeared from my line of sight, my phone vibrated. It was Mr. Vance. The FBI has them. There is more than enough evidence. They are going straight to federal holding. I replied with a simple, thank you. I finished my wine. The dry, bitter aftertaste on my tongue made me feel incredibly lucid. It was time to head down to the New York County Courthouse for the preliminary divorce hearing. The doors to the courtroom swung open. Alexander, escorted by 2 federal marshals because he was being held in pre-trial detention, walked in. His head was shaved, and he was wearing the standard-issue orange jumpsuit from the Federal Detention Center in Brooklyn. His arrogance had completely vanished. All that was left was a broken, anxious man. He sat at the defendant's table across from me. The judge took the floor. We are here to determine the final terms of the divorce and the division of the marital estate. Mr. Rivers, what is your stance? Alexander spoke with a hoarse, trembling voice. Your Honor, I don't want a divorce. I know I made a terrible mistake. I've paid for it. I'm in federal lockup. I've lost my reputation. He looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I'm begging you. Drop the charges. Keep everything. The shares, the house, everything. Just don't abandon me. I stared right at the judge. Your Honor, I reaffirm my petition. The marital bond is irrevocably broken due to infidelity, and the commission of continuous financial crimes against our joint estate. I demand a divorce. Sophia, I swear I've changed, he sobbed. The judge banged his gavel. Order in the court. If Mrs. Mendoza demands a divorce, the divorce is granted. Let us move to the division of assets. The plaintiff requests the entirety of the marital estate due to the malicious concealment of assets by the defendant. That's not fair, Alexander panicked. The funds at my parents' house and those shares are my personal assets from before we got married. The law says that belongs to me. I gave a nod to Mr. Vance, who handed a new dossier to the judge. Your Honor, I said in a calm voice. Those supposedly separate assets were acquired with money from our joint account, disguised through a fraudulent loan contract drafted by his cousin Derek. And the property in the Hamptons, which is in the name of another relative, was paid for with funds embezzled from the company. Here are the confessions from both relatives to the FBI, the bank statements, and the wire records. Alexander's body jerked as if he'd been hit with a stun gun. He never imagined that I had tracked down every last penny he hid with his frontman. The judge skimmed the documents and glared at Alexander. Mr. Rivers, you have attempted to defraud your spouse and this court. In light of the overwhelming evidence, I rule that 100% of the marital estate, along with the corresponding compensatory damages, are awarded to Mrs. Sophia Mendoza. Court is adjourned. Alexander collapsed into his chair, burying his face in his hands. He knew there was no going back. The marshals pulled him to his feet to haul him back to the transport van. The day the final judgment arrived in the mail, the Pacific sun was pouring through the windows of my new coastal home in Carmel-by-the-Sea, California. Dressed in comfortable linen clothes, I was out on the patio watering my bougainvillea when the doorbell rang. A courier handed me a certified envelope from the court. I sat down on my wicker sofa, opened the envelope, and read the legal rulings. Everything was official. The divorce was granted with extreme prejudice. The entire estate was in my name. A $50,000 judgment for emotional distress was ordered for Alexander to pay me, and the execution order against Chloe's assets was finalized. I went to make myself a cup of tea. While the water boiled, Mr. Vance called. Sophia, congratulations. The ruling is final. The property deeds are in your name. The accounts have been unfrozen and transferred. And I have some good news on the criminal side. The federal trial is over. Alexander was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud and corporate embezzlement. His remaining personal assets were auctioned off to pay Innovatex creditors. I smiled, looking out at the ocean. Thank you for everything, Mr. Vance. A little while later, Ray, the detective, sent me a text with some photos. The images showed Chloe pushing a shopping cart full of scrap metal and cardboard near a homeless encampment under an overpass in Los Angeles. She was wearing tattered thrift store clothes, her hair was matted, and her eyes looked hollow. She had been given a suspended sentence because she had no prior record, but they had seized every single penny she had to return the stolen money. Now, nobody would hire her. Her wealthy friends had turned their backs on her, and her ashamed parents back in her hometown wanted nothing to do with her. Her greed had thrown her right back into absolute misery. I turned off my phone screen without feeling an ounce of pity. You reap what you sow. In the following months, my life filled with light. I decorated my California coastal home exactly how I wanted. I got rid of the heavy mahogany furniture Alexander used to love and replaced it with a minimalist design, lots of white tones and light wood. I hung my own paintings on the walls, picked up my old hobbies, joined an oil painting class, and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I did yoga at a studio right on Carmel Beach. I made a small group of friends, and we'd go out for brunch and wine on the weekends. As the owner of 30% and the largest shareholder of Innovatic, I hired an external executive team to run the company. I only flew back to New York once a month for board meetings. The rest of my time was dedicated to launching a small online art gallery, selling my canvases and ceramic pieces. Surprisingly, it was a massive success. I felt fulfilled for the first time in my life, no longer living in any man's shadow. Every now and then, I'd get a text from Joe or Mary, my ex-in-laws. They'd send me pictures of the oak tree in their yard or their tomato harvest. Once, Mary sent me a photo of Alexander in the visitation room of the federal penitentiary. He looked old, with graying hair and slumped shoulders. Mary told me he was studying law in the prison library and that he was begging for my forgiveness. I simply replied, "I'm glad he's studying. Take good care of yourselves, Mary. Give Joe my love." Sometimes, wounds heal best when there is distance. As evening fell, sitting on my patio in Carmel, I watched the sun dip into the orange horizon of the Pacific Ocean. I poured myself a glass of wine and breathed in the salty breeze. The wind rustled the leaves of the bougainvillea. That failed marriage was a nightmare I woke up from by taking hard hits, but instead of letting them sink me, I used every single hit to build my own foundation. Now, free, independent, and the absolute master of my own destiny, I looked up at the starry sky. I didn't know what the future held, or if I would ever love again, but one thing was crystal clear. In this house by the sea, my life belonged to no one but me.